In a week packed with political drama, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer finds himself in the middle of a brewing storm over luxury freebies. Reports suggest he's accepted nearly £100,000 in gifts, sparking outrage across political and media circles. Jeremy Clarkson has weighed in, sarcastically skewering Starmer's decision to accept a luxury seat in an executive box at Arsenal, undercutting his own working-class messaging. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage and Reform UK are making their own waves, with MP Lee Anderson outlining key target areas in the Red Wall for the upcoming elections. Farage's ambitions are clear: to build a populist movement that could carry him to Downing Street by 2029. Let's dive into these political tremors, starting with Starmer's latest controversy and moving into the rise of Reform UK, which is steadily chipping away at Labour's Red Wall strongholds. Keir Starmer has always positioned himself as a man of the people, a Labour leader who could appeal to working-class voters while championing progressive values. However, the recent revelations about his acceptance of high-value gifts have thrown that image into disarray. According to reports, Starmer has received nearly £100,000 in freebies, including designer suits, clothing, and even expensive pairs of glasses. What has really stirred the pot, though, is the Prime Minister's decision to watch his beloved Arsenal from a plush executive box rather than sitting with fans in the stands. Starmer explained his decision during an ITV interview, stating that security concerns had forced him to accept the seat. "I've had season tickets at Arsenal for years, but now as Prime Minister, I can't sit in the stands without a major security operation, which would cost taxpayers a fortune," he said. His reasoning that sitting in the stands would place a heavy burden on public funds hasn't impressed everyone, least of all public figures like Jeremy Clarkson, who took aim at Starmer's perceived hypocrisy. Clarkson, never one to shy away from controversy, published a scathing column in The Sun this week, mocking Starmer's justification. In the sort of truly socialist world that Sir Starmer has dreamed of his entire life, there would be no swanky director's box at Arsenal. All of the fans, Jeremy Corbyn and Piers Morgan included, would be in the cold, in the stands with everyone else, because all the animals are equal, but some, as we know, are more equal than others, Clarkson wrote, referencing George Orwell's Animal Farm. The TV presenter sarcastically pointed out that former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak had no problem sitting among the public at Southampton's stadium, suggesting Starmer's move had little to do with security and more to do with comfort. It's not just Clarkson who has lambasted the Labour leader. Political commentators, including GB News' Nana Akua, have criticised Starmer for accepting luxury gifts when he's already a wealthy man. "She doesn't need freebies," she fumed, "and this is not a good look for someone trying to present themselves as the voice of the working class." Akua's sentiment echoes a broader public frustration with the Labour leadership. The optics of accepting lavish gifts while ordinary voters face a cost-of-living crisis and rising energy bills have fueled a perception of disconnect between Labour's top brass and the people they claim to represent. Labour's response to the backlash has been swift but reactive. Starmer, along with Deputy PM Angela Rayner and Chancellor Rachel Reeves, announced they would stop accepting any gifts or donations going forward. Rayner and Reeves have also come under scrutiny for receiving clothing donations valued at thousands of pounds. Yet the damage may already be done. With Labour gearing up for the next general election, this scandal risks undermining their credibility as a party that stands for fairness and working-class values. Conservative critics have wasted no time capitalising on the controversy. They've framed Labour as hypocritical and elitist, with one senior Tory commenting that Starmer is accepting thousands of pounds in freebie clothes while consigning 10 million pensioners to a cold and hard winter. Such attacks may gain traction as Labour struggles to pivot the narrative back to its policies, with the freebies row potentially casting a long shadow over Starmer's leadership as he prepares for a crucial national conference in Liverpool. While Labour deals with its internal crises, Reform UK is sharpening its knives for the next round of local and general elections. Lee Anderson, the outspoken MP who defected from the Conservative Party to join Reform UK, has been vocal about his party's plans to conquer the Red Wall, the cluster of traditionally Labour-held seats that swung to the Conservatives in Boris Johnson's 2019 landslide. Anderson believes that Reform UK, under the leadership of Nigel Farage, has the potential to not only chip away at Labour's Red Wall, but also to eventually topple the two-party system that has long dominated British politics. In a speech to GB News, Anderson laid out Reform UK's key target areas for the 2025 local elections. His own constituency of Ashfield, a red wall seat that he retained after switching from the Conservatives, will be a key battleground. He argued that Reform UK's message is resonating particularly well in Leave voting areas that feel abandoned by both Labour and the Conservatives. We should be chucking our money and resources into these areas because I am pretty sure in May next year, when we have council elections, we will win lots of seats, Anderson predicted. Anderson's strategy is straightforward. Focus on the issues that matter most to red wall voters, particularly migration. The subject of migration comes up time and time again, Anderson said. The other parties completely ignore the people in the red wall, especially in places like Ashfield. For donkey's years, people have voted to cap immigration, and the other parties go totally against that. His comments reflect Reform UK's broader focus on populist issues, which they believe are being ignored by both Labour and the Conservatives. Nigel Farage, the party's leader, has been equally bullish about Reform UK's prospects. Speaking at a conference, he declared, "We can win the next general election just with the numbers of people that agree with our principles." Farage's goal isn't just to win a handful of seats, but to build a political movement capable of winning the 2029 general election and making him Prime Minister. Farage's rise to MP on his 8th attempt in July 2024 has galvanised his supporters, giving his lofty ambitions a veneer of plausibility. However, Reform UK's path to power won't be easy. While they trail slightly behind the Tories in some red wall constituencies, as Anderson himself pointed out, Labour still holds a majority in most of these areas. But with public disillusionment growing, particularly around immigration and economic stagnation, Farage's message may resonate with enough voters to cause significant upsets in future elections. Reform UK's chairman, Zia Yousaf, echoed Farage's optimism, stating, "By 2029, Reform UK will be ready to be the party of government, and a Prime Minister Farage will embark on the most ambitious and bold reforms this country has seen in our lifetimes." Reform UK's strategy is to position itself as the party that listens to voters, especially those in disenfranchised areas. If Farage and Anderson can capitalise on public dissatisfaction with both Labour and the Conservatives, their populist message may have a broader appeal than many pundits expect. In a politically charged week, Keir Starmer's Freebie scandal threatens to damage his credibility as Labour's leader, particularly in the eyes of voters who expect their leaders to be transparent and in touch with their needs. Jeremy Clarkson's sharp critique encapsulates the frustration of many who see a growing disconnect between Labour's leadership and its working-class base. On the other hand, Reform UK's populist message continues to gain traction, especially in Leave voting red wall constituencies. With Lee Anderson targeting these areas and Farage setting his sights on number 10, the 2024 and 2029 elections could see a seismic shift in the political landscape. As Starmer scrambles to contain the fallout from his freebies row and Farage rallies his supporters, British politics appears poised for yet another dramatic chapter. Will Labour recover its footing, or is the stage being set for a new populist insurgency?